Welcome to the City of Sydney Council to my presentation on reducing carbon emissions through urban adaptation, strategies for Sydney's growing population. Today's talk will present urban adaptation strategies to assist you, the City of Sydney Council, to meet your ambitious plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 70% by 2030. You certainly have a challenge in your hands, with Greater Sydney's population expecting to grow by 1 million by 2026. But firstly, what are the causes and consequences of climate change? The increase of temperature on a global scale directly impacts the Earth. However, it's the indirect impacts where the true effects of climate change will be felt by human society. Why is this climate change happening, and what has caused this? One reason is the increase in greenhouse gases from human activity such as burning fossil fuels and cutting down of rainforest. You can see here that carbon dioxide is the main contributor. Cities now account for over half the world's population, but require 2/3 of the global energy requirements. This energy is required to power the city. With these energy requirements, there are increased levels of greenhouse gas emissions from urban energy intensity. Cities can also be a few degrees warmer than regional areas because surfaces absorb heat and release energy from the sun, creating an urban heat island effect. So on to Sydney. A CSI report back in 2007 stated by 2070, Sydney's temperature will rise higher than average. Bushfire frequency will almost double and rainfall will be reduced. As you're aware, 80% of Sydney's carbon emissions come from electricity production from coal-fired power stations. Sydney's population is growing. In the City of Sydney LGA, there is estimated to be a 40% increase by 2036. Thus, attaining reduction targets will be difficult with greater urban density ratios. So, what can Sydney do? San Francisco has a lot of similarities to Sydney. San Francisco is based on a beautiful harbour, but also relies on dirty power in the form of natural gas. San Francisco took an all-round approach to reducing emissions, implementing aggressive climate change policies and strategies. However, the biggest kicker for San Francisco was the closing down of 2 natural gas power plants. The result for San Francisco has meant that they've satisfied Kyoto Protocol carbon emissions. From 1990 to 2010, there have been a reduction of 0.8 metric tonnes of carbon emissions. This is despite an 11% population increase. However, San Francisco has hit some political roadblocks. A renewable energy program called Clean Power SF would allow San Francisco to generate its own clean energy and deliver through existing transmission networks. However, the current natural gas provider is stalling this initiative. Malmö is Sweden's 3rd largest city, and it's just 40 kilometres from Copenhagen, Denmark, across the Øresund Bridge. The problem Malmö has was its western shipping harbour was becoming a polluted, defunct industrial wasteland. The site has now become transformed through urban renewal and has become a leading example of environmental adaptation in the built urban environment. The area, now known as Bo01, was designed from the outset to use 100% renewable energy and be self-sufficient in terms of energy consumption, relying on the sun, water and wind. In addition, some other great initiatives include the use of food wastage to run the city's buses on biogas and architecturally design energy-efficient buildings. This urban renewal project shows that with forward green planning, cities can significantly reduce carbon emissions. Even though not all targets were met, it has set an important example, and the principles of the project are being implemented in other parts of the world like Changzhou in China. Chicago is the 3rd biggest city in the US. Chicago has 60% of impervious surfaces as its land area. As mentioned before, buildings and pavements absorb and release energy from the sun, making Chicago a victim of the urban heat island effect. The city has suffered extreme heat waves in the past. One strategy the city of Chicago implemented is green roofs. Green roofs have certain benefits to the city's environmental characteristics, such as reducing urban heat island effect and better insulation of buildings. It's also an innovative way to bring biodiversity back into the city. Chicago has more green roofs than any other city in North America and has implemented this strategy using green incentives to developers, basically fast-tracking green menu items or waiving fees. The green roof implementation is still a little ad hoc though, and larger scale implementation will be required to show the true benefit. Each of these cities have achieved success with their strategies to reduce carbon emissions. San Francisco did it by taking a multifaceted approach through legislation. Malmö's Bo01 area developed from scratch as a 100% renewable energy district. And Chicago green roofs have been very successful in reducing energy use for the individual buildings that have them. Here are my recommendations. Recommendation 1. Start planning now to stop the reliance on coal-powered energy and take a long-term view. Liaise and lobby with all levels of government and key business stakeholders to obtain agreement on building more green-based power stations. I think if we don't take this approach, we'll have the same situation as San Francisco, with political red tape halting progress. Recommendation 2. Like the Boho 1 district in Malmo, for future urban renewal projects, implement self-sufficient green power infrastructure, such as solar panels, where all the power required for the district is produced in the district. Demand for power for outside sources such as coal will still need to be provided if we don't take up these sort of initiatives. Recommendation 3. Turn food wastage into biogas. I think we need to keep innovative about our recycling, because if not, more space for waste will be needed in the city. Recommendation 4. Offer incentives like Chicago for developers and existing building owners to green up their building. For example, Section 94 contributions could be dropped or lowered. Developers are always looking for the most cost-effective development. If there are no incentives in place, it's more likely that green design won't be incorporated. And finally, we must remember that Sydney is Australia's global city, and is often the city by which we are judged internationally. Sydney has the potential to be a true symbol of change. So let's change!